This is an ABC News special report.
Good morning. I'm Whit Johnson in New York. We're coming on the air because the Supreme Court has just issued its ruling in a Second Amendment gun control case challenging the country's ban on bump stocks. Those are the attachments which essentially convert semi-automatic rifles into automatic rifles. The Trump administration, you'll remember, issuing the ban following the horrific mass shooting in Las Vegas back in 2017 when Stephen Paddock used weapons fitted with bump stocks to open fire on a country music festival, killing 58 people and wounding hundreds more. The owner of a gun store in Texas challenging that ban. So this is a rare case of the Biden administration defending a decision by the Trump administration. And just moments ago, the court ruling the ban is unlawful. Let's get right to ABC's senior national correspondent Terry Moran at the Supreme Court. Terry, as we pointed out here, that rare case, it had some bipartisan support, but the Supreme Court says no, it's against the law.
That's right. This is essentially striking down what the Trump administration tried to do after the shooting in Las Vegas that killed 60 people back in 2017. The shooter in that case used one of these bump stocks. And this opinion really gets into the guts of a firearm, of a rifle, and how it works to draw a distinction between a machine gun, which have been illegal in the United States since 1934, and that 1934 law defines a machine gun as a weapon that fires more than one shot with a single function of the trigger. And a bump stock, which is not the same thing, according to the plaintiffs and now the Supreme Court of the United States. A bump stock uses the recoil of the rifle and the shooter's own manipulation of that pressure to achieve a very high rate of fire. The trigger continues to discharge the projectile every single shot. So it's not the same thing. I mean, right here in black and white, it's an opinion by Clarence Thomas. He says, we conclude that a semi-automatic rifle equipped with a bump stock is not a machine gun because it does not fire more than one shot by a single function of the trigger. Those words from that 1934 law. Now, the dissenters in this case said, well, the point of the function of the trigger was not how it works inside the gun. It's what comes out the end of the barrel. You can achieve a massive torrent of fire with both weapons. And they thought that this regulation passed during the Trump administration would cover both. But the Supreme Court says no. And so bump stocks, and there are hundreds of thousands of Americans who had them. They were ordered to surrender them or destroy them. Bump stocks are now legal once again in the United States of America.
Terry, thank you. Stand by here. I want to bring in ABC's senior Washington correspondent, Devin Dwyer. And Devin, I was just going back through some of these arguments from April, and this stands out to me, too, here. This from Justice Amy Coney Barrett. Intuitively, she says, I am entirely sympathetic to your argument, talking to the government here. But she says, I don't think the question is why didn't Congress pass that legislation to make this cover it more clearly? So to Terry's point, getting into sort of like the nuts and bolts, the mechanics of how these bump stocks work. Even during these arguments a couple months ago, the justices seemed a little bit confused about what would fit this definition.
Right. This law dates back to 1934, Whit, when the government banned machine guns that with the single pull of a trigger fire a huge spray of bullets at hundreds of rounds per minute. And what the conservative justices are saying here is that these bump stocks, as unsavory as they may be, as dangerous as they may be, as public menaces as many may see them, they simply don't meet the definition under federal law. And so she was sort of hinting that the government may want to rewrite that. You see in the picture here on the right of the screen is Jeremiah Cottle. He invented the bump stock. I traveled to Tennessee to meet with him, and he demonstrated for us just how these work. And he has insisted all along with that the single pull of a trigger does not release a spray of bullets. It requires an extra pull of the arm. And told me just yesterday that he continues to want to sell these. He sold more than 700,000 over the years that they were approved for sale. And the ATF, under the Obama administration, made that decision that they were legal. And now it appears that the Supreme Court has agreed with that judgment as well.
Devin, thinking, of course, that horrific moment from 2017. Investigators say there were several of those bump stock devices that were used to carry out that killing, some 60 people. This country, we've seen a lot of mass shootings. This was another level, and that's why it had that bipartisan support behind the ban initially. Let's bring in our Chief Justice correspondent, Pierre Thomas. From a practical standpoint, Pierre, what does this mean going forward?
Well, this obviously is going to concern many in law enforcement. As you said, the Trump administration and the Biden administration have been pretty clear that these bump stocks, in practical terms, even though the Supreme Court ruled that technically they are different, in practical terms, this allows a weapon to fire a tremendous amount of rounds. And we know that assault rifles are the primary weapon used in many of the mass shootings. So law enforcement will be looking at this, again, deeply concerned that, again, people who want to commit acts of mass violence will now be able to buy these things across the counter with no problem whatsoever.
Pierre Thomas, thank you. ABC News Supreme Court contributor Kate Shaw is joining us as well. And Kate, could this be open to challenges going forward? What's the future here?
Well, the ATF could try to do something different if it wanted to. I mean, the fundamental problem here is that the conservative majority, in the opinion by Justice Thomas, really focused on the words of a statute. And of course, that requires Congress to change if they're going to give the ATF different authority. But I do think you have sort of a theme in this opinion between the majority and the dissenting opinion, which is that the majority really views itself as the sort of the final arbiter of all legal questions. And it says there's a statute and we're going to decide what the statute means by reading the words closely. There are even some images, right, diagrams in the opinion of how these bump stocks work. The dissent says, well, really the expert agency, the ATF, is the body that we should trust to decide what kind of firearm policy is required, consistent with the broad statutes passed by Congress. And of course, here the majority has the votes, and so it wins. And so this regulation, again, as you said, a Trump administration regulation falls. And I suspect we are likely to see more decisions along these lines where agency decisions get overridden by the conservative majority on the Supreme Court.
All right, we will see how this plays out. Kate Shaw, thank you, and to our entire team. Again, the breaking news just moments ago, the Supreme Court ruling the ban on bump stocks is unlawful. We're going to send you back to regular programming now. For some of you, that's Good Morning America, and our coverage here on ABC News Live and abcnews.com continues. And then I'll be back later this evening with our entire World News Tonight team. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Wade Johnson in New York. Have a good day.
This has been a special report from ABC News.